ทดสอบทดสอบฮัลโหลฮัลโหล
Waiting for a love like this. Every time we say goodbye, I wish we had one more kiss. I'll wait for you. I promise you I will. Lucky I'm in love with my best friend. Lucky to have been where we have been. Lucky to be coming home again. Lucky we're in love in every way. Lucky to have stayed where we have stayed.
Hello.
Lucky to be
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the plenary session. Sustainable Energy Solution for Smart Cities. Recently, sustainability and smart city become keywords for almost everywhere, almost every projects or every plans. And so I'm sure today's topic's gonna be of everybody's interest. And today hybrid session is honored by 4 distinguished speakers. Allow me to present the list of 4 speakers first. The first speaker would be Dr. Tawalat Sutabut, Inspector General, Ministry of Energy. He's gonna present the topics of ASEAN Future Energy Paradigm Shift towards energy transition-oriented development. And the second speaker would be online because she couldn't be here. But anyway, Dr. Lebir Farouki, Director, Knowledge Policy and Finance Center of International Renewable Energy Agency, or we know as ARENA. She's gonna present on the topic of the potential of renewable energy in Thailand and Southeast Asia. The third speaker would be Associate Professor Dr. Yosapong Laonuan, the General Secretary of ASEAN Federation of Electric Vehicle Association. He, the former president of the society, the associations. He's gonna present the topic of how electric vehicles can help shape future ASEAN smart cities. The last speaker will be Mr. Saathit Krongsuth, Director, Research and Innovation Division, Electricity Generating Authorities of Thailand, or EGAT. He's gonna present the topic of the role of EGAT in building Thailand's smart energy future. So let me start with the first speaker. Dr. Tawalat Sutabut holds a Doctor of Science in Civil and Environment Engineering from Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Dr. Tawalat has experiences in a wide range of energy policy coordination and initiatives such as renewable energy, energy efficiency, and international energy corporations. He used to serve as Deputy Director General of Department of Alternative Energy Development and Efficiency from 2009 to 2014. Afterwards, he served as Director General of Energy Policy and Planning Office, or EPO, and Deputy Permanent Secretaries, Ministry of Energy. Dr. Tawalat is now an Inspector General attached to the Ministry of Energy. His other current positions include Board of Directors of PTT Exploration and Production Public Companies Limited, or PTTEP, and National Security and Dual Use Technology Center. And now I would like to invite Dr. Tawalat on the stage.
Thank you, Professor Atikom, for your kind introductions. And thank you very much, your distinguished delegates that joining me and joining the organizer at this very timely conference. I was assigned to do a little talk to lead in about the topic of energy transition. So I would like to, well, I have just only 5 slides presentation, but just to lead the thinking of a new energy transition in a new era after the COVID that has been hit around the world. Well, my topic is not only energy transition, but it's about paradigm shift. It's about the shifting from something that you already have to something which is a new territory. So I would like just to say a few things. The first thing is COVID changed many things, changed a lot of things. First is the COVID has hit a country like us, like Thailand, very badly. Our economic structure comprised mainly from the tourism and also export oriented. So our GDP in this year, GDP has been hit as bad as the ASEAN or Asian financial crisis some 20 years ago in 1997. The second quarter or the first half of the year of 2020, the GDP contract by 12.2%. But the worst of the worst, I would think, is yet to come, because we have to see some recovery plan, a more solid recovery plan, and everything is depend very much on the vaccine. Because if the vaccine would come, we hope that the international flights and international trade, including tourism, would be reopened again, and the economy of Thailand would reemerge. So I would think that the paradigm shift of energy transition into the future needs help, needs a lot of help, and needs a lot of collaborations between public and private sector. The COVID is not hitting the economy, just only the GDP terms, but it hit the energy sector badly as well. It evaporated demand. The chart showed the peak demands on the monthly basis of Thailand. We used to have a peak demand of 31,000 megawatts back 2 years ago, the red line. But right now, this year peak demand reduced to only 28,500 megawatts, which is contract by 8%. And the worst is, the side of electricity consumption has not been picking up yet, not yet, because the main electricity consumption in our country mainly come from manufacturing and also the commercial sector. Commercial would include, hotels, restaurants, and other types of the tourism related activities. So the elect energy sector has been hit badly by the COVID. So how can we re-emerge from this? This is very difficult, very difficult. At the moment, as the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Energy, Kun Supathanaphong mentioned this morning that the Thai government is very much try to do some recovery plan and try to be very focused on some subsector, I would say. Right now, the policy would very much focus on 4 subsector that include tourism, healthcare, food and agriculture, and also global supply chain that include the export and logistics. But also the government has mentioned that the enabler or the mechanism that could drive this recovery plan would include 2 important programs. First one is the workforce reskill and to enhance productivity. And the other one is about digitization to make things digitally equipped. And I have a chance to talk with many opinion leaders. They also think that recovery plan should include some kind of the investment jumpstart on energy efficiency and renewables energy. Because the reskill program and the digitization process very much integrate into a new paradigm shift of energy transition. Because energy transition would mean, is a decentralized programs, change from fossil fuel based to renewable energy based supply, and it would be enabled by the digital infrastructure. So I hope that Thailand would announce the recovery plan very soon and use all the mechanisms that the Ministry of Energy has. For example, we have the Energy Conservation Fund, in which would do some funding mechanisms to the new investment for the future. So what is this paradigm shift has to do with the energy transition, as well as what do we need to do for the future? One thing that I think is very practical and could be a clever policy for the future, that is a policy to promote smart city. Smart city doesn't have to be just only 1 or 2 or 3 pilot projects. Actually, smart city can be every city in the country. But the mindset to develop or redevelop the city into a smart one need some guideline. And it the smart city incorporate everything that I talk about. It incorporate the energy transition. It needs workforce reskill. It needs the digital infrastructure. So I do believe that if Thailand has to emerge or re-emerge after the COVID and become a leader again in future energy transition, smart city is the core policy to drive the economy forward. At the moment, we have a policy. We have a big committee in which at least 3 ministries has to collaborate among one another. That include Ministry of Energy, Ministry of Transportation, and Ministry of Digital Economy and Social Development, the DAS, and has set up the 7 smart guidelines that if any city in Thailand would like to develop themselves into smart city, at least they have a framework to work with. 7 smart would include the smart environment, that would include the, the uh, waste management, solid waste and wastewater. It would include smart economy, incubation of new entrepreneur, smart mobility, which include the introductions of the rail system and also the transition from the ICE mobility into the, the less emitting mobility that include the electric vehicle. Smart energy would include the decentralized units or system of energy supply. Either it's a microgrid or it's a standalone prosumer type that you produce your own electricity and sells back to the grid. Smart community and smart people would include the workforce reskill, focus on innovations for the digital world for the next century. Smart living would include the new township that increase the green space and have a new, the new type of urbanization that would increase the quality of life. And last but not least, a smart government. A smart government is a service. The government needs to create a portal that the citizen can check in and, do every transaction that related to the government in just one single portal website. So this is a framework that the Thai government already lay out the smart city strategy for the future. At the moment, the smart city gaining some traction and has some momentum. There are many cities that apply to become a smart city. From what I heard recently, there are at least 22 or 25 municipalities that apply to become a smart city. The benefit, if you've been approved to become a smart city, that would include some tax incentive granted by the BOI about investment to the maximum privilege that allowable in the country. And the investment in the future would also could be either private sector investment or a public-private participation types of a mix of everything. But smart city need more help, because smart city policy still needs to how would I say this? You need some new regulation, not new regulation, but you need to relax some rules and change or modify some regulations to allow more of the integration of the everything that I've been saying. For example, if you want to integrate the digital transformations into the energy supply system, some particular thing cannot be done with the current or existing regulation. For example, if you pay electricity at your home, you cannot do a prepaid program. You can only do the postpaid program. You pay after you use. But actually, there's a new type of thing, a new program that you can do a prepaid type of meter, and could, a lot of promotions and package can be done. But this need some kind of the um, uh, uh, the regulations of certain rules and regulation. It needs a lot of efforts from top down. And I hope that if Thailand could be able to create all this environment for a smart city in the future, we do believe that the new paradigm shift on energy transition oriented development in the country could be promoted in the future. I would stop here just to um, get all of you to think about the future of, uh, of a country or a city, that we need a lot of collaboration and integration of many technology. I thank you very much, and I still be around and see you guys on the floor later. สวัสดีครับ
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Chwalat. It's really nice to listen to Dr. Chwalat. He gave a lot of information about smart city. And at the beginning, he also guide us about the government effort, try to recover the economies with new business investment. And he mentioned about paradigm shift that gonna come into play very soon. And it's really nice to know that there are 7 dimensions of smart city, namely environment, economy, mobility, energy, people, living, and governance. And he also gave us the guideline that how can smart city be evaluated, and give us the criteria. And that's very, very new to us. And thank you very much for the information to Dr. Tualat. And our next speaker would be online because Dr. Rabia Faruqi, and Dr. Rabia Faruqi is the now Deputy Director of Knowledge, Policy and Finance. Dr. Rabia Faruqi joined IRENA in 2011, where she is currently the Deputy Director of the Knowledge, Policy and Finance Division. She also leads IRENA's policy unit, which is responsible for the work on a range of renewable energy policy issues, including design, socio-economic benefits, and integrated resource management. Dr. Faruqi brought to the position over 20 years of experience in the field of energy development and environment. She worked in both public and private sectors, including with governments in the Middle East and North Africa, energy companies in the Mediterranean region, and the GCC and International Institute. And today, Dr. Rabia Faruqi gonna present on the topic of the potential of renewable energy in Thailand and Southeast Asia. And now we're gonna ask you to join the presentation online.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so very, very much for your invitation, and it's a pleasure for me to be today with you to speak about the potential for renewable energy, including in Southeast Asia, and the benefits from an energy transition, as was just mentioned by the distinguished speaker before me. I think it's important to understand that national and municipal level policy makers have really an opportunity to continue scaling up renewable energy capacity so that society can reap not only the benefits from climate, but as was just mentioned and many times in the conference, also the socioeconomic gains from this cleaner energy system. Next slide, please. So let me first point to what has been accomplished today. Can I ask you for the next slide, please? Thank you. The countries in the regions are expanding their deployment of renewables. And as you see, the installed capacity in renewable power has grown steadily over the years. And if you just look at 2015, 2019, we're moving from 54, 58 gigawatts to about 72, 73 in 2019. Hydropower remains the main source, but solar PV is beginning to pick up pace. And several countries like Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam are playing a very important role in PV manufacturing. So while a substantial portion of output is geared towards the export market, which, as our former colleague has said, is an issue given the disruptions in global supply chain, etc., domestic markets are now also growing. So outside the power sector now, several countries in the regions are significant biofuel producers. But despite the growth that we have witnessed in installed renewable energy capacity, the share of renewables in total capacity remains fairly constant. So that reflects that not only renewable capacity is growing, but the region's overall energy demand is growing. So today I'd like to present why the region should embark on an even more ambitious efforts to increase the overall share of renewable and accelerate the energy transition. Next slide, please. Very briefly, our work at IRENA clearly shows that the energy transition can generate many benefits, whether it's in terms of jobs, in terms of GDP, welfare, etc. And that the energy sector has to be understood in the context of the socioeconomic structures upon which it is built. So reducing the climate impact of fossil fuel-based economies brings economic and environmental objectives together in close alignment. And this is through the profound restructuring of the energy and socioeconomic system. Very briefly, we assess trends in renewable energy employment. Today, it's about 11 million. We measure the expected socioeconomic impacts of the deployment of renewables. And we see in all regions that we look at an overall positive impact. We analyze also how to leverage domestic capacity through local supply chain development and ensure local value creation. And we examine also to ensure that the benefits are widely shared, including with aspects like gender, etc. So in order to realize the full socioeconomic potential means we need to adopt a comprehensive policy package for a just transition. And I'll go into that a little bit in my presentation. Next slide, please. The socioeconomic benefits that I just mentioned from the energy transition, if policies are well designed and developed, they bring benefits, as I said. And we have this in two major publications, the Global Renewables Outlook, where we show a pathway for the energy transition to 2030 and 2050 that is consistent with the Paris Climate Agreement. And we look at the impact globally and regionally, as well as nationally for some countries when it's requested. But given that the COVID crisis happened, what we did is also analyze a shorter term perspective, 2020, 2023, or 2021, 2023. And that's the post-COVID recovery, an agenda for resilience, development, and equality, to show again that, to quantify again the benefits in terms of jobs and GDP, even in a short term. So our findings show that policymakers have really a unique opportunity to align the short-term investments and the policies for the recovery of the COVID crisis with longer-term needs to decarbonize the economies. Next slide, please. And so both the reports that I just mentioned are, next slide, please, are centered on the analysis of a low carbon resilient economy. So we have a transforming energy pathway, which is consistent, as I said, with the Paris Agreement, and reduces energy sector emissions by 70% by 2020, which is much more steeply than under planned scenarios or that governments have. According to our studies, renewables would provide 28% of global energy supply by 2030 and 65% by 2050, and up from now 14%. Next slide, please. For Southeast Asia, for the region as a whole, our scenario, the transforming energy scenario, shows that renewables would rise from about 18% of total primary energy supply in 2017-18 to 75% in 2050, and it would provide 85% of the region's total electricity generation capacity by 2050. This is a 20-fold increase from 54 gigawatts or so in 2017 to more than 1,000 gigawatts. But this would require an average annual investments of about $140 billion in different, what we call energy transition related fields: energy efficiency, renewable energy, and energy system flexibility. That includes in the 140 billion, 45 billion for renewables. And this, over time, these investments will generate savings and help cushion the negative impact from COVID and other crises. And governments can really fund, the funds from government, as was just mentioned earlier, can leverage private sector investments, strategically guide and nudge investment decisions in the right direction. Of course, there is no one size fits all when it comes to energy transition investments and enabling policies. But broadly, we can have sort of the main, let's say, the main design around policies. Next slide, please. Just to show you that GDP benefits globally in the world. If you look at our findings, we show that GDP in 2050, by 2050, sorry, would be about 2.4% above what would be otherwise under the planned scenario. The cumulative gains over time between 2019 and 2050 are $98 trillion globally. And most regions of the world see their GDP increase under this more ambitious scenario of moving towards the energy transition. Now, of course, there are differences in GDP between regions, and that's due to existing macroeconomic structures, the trade patterns, the dependencies, etc. For Southeast Asia, we can expect a significant GDP growth. As you see, the slide shows the gains under this transforming scenario, and we would have an almost 3% GDP gain above the business as usual. And so it shows that for the region, it would be moving towards a transition, a decarbonized society would bring a lot of benefits. In cumulative terms, like for the 98 trillion for the world, for the Southeast region, it would be about 5.6 trillion more cumulative added to GDP than under planned or business as usual. Next slide, please. Now, in terms of employment, our modeling results show that the number of jobs worldwide in renewable energy would increase from today or last year's 11 million to 42 million jobs. So all regions again in the world would enjoy employment gains in these transition-related technologies, and that would outweigh the losses in the fossil fuel. So if you see at the left side of the slide, it compares results under these different two scenarios, the pathway towards decarbonization and the planned scenario. And you see on the right side, the absolute job numbers under the two, again, under this pathway. And total energy sector jobs in Southeast Asia could reach about 11 million under this pathway, which would be a net increase of 4.7 million. And this is mainly due to renewables, where job would increase from 2 million to 6.7 million. Energy efficiency also increases, and so does power sector flexibility. While the job losses would be about 300,000 in fossil fuel. Next slide, please. Now, if you look at renewables itself in Southeast Asia, you see that the 6.7 million jobs that I talked about would be by 2050. Bioenergy would be the largest share with about 4.4 million. Solar energy, 1.8 million. And jobs in hydro would increase by 84%. Next one, please. I just want to show you that to reap the employment benefits from the transition, what we did is we analyzed potential job creation in different segments of the value chain for wind and solar technologies, for example. And this is really derived from project level analysis, where we look at the labor requirements of a typical size facility with really projects from around the world. The renewable energy sector draws on a variety of occupational groups and skill sets, including low-skilled labor, and therefore it provides a lot of job opportunities. From project planning all the way to decommissioning, there is a broad range of activity of activities within different occupational categories. So just very briefly, for a typical 50 megawatt solar PV, for example, we have 230,000 person days along the whole value chain. The highest labor requirements are typically in operation and maintenance, and then procurement, manufacturing, and then construction and installation. This is just to show you that in order to be ready, policies have to be introduced today in terms of labor and skills requirement in order to reap the benefits of this transition. So we have to prepare for the transition even better. Next slide, please. And building the skilled workforce for this 42 million jobs in the world requires a focus really on education and training. I mean, first, there is a need to encourage more young people to pursue studies and careers that are related to renewable energy. I mean, for example, integrating the subject early in school curricula, mainstreaming the topic at university level, etc. Second, it is vital to ensure that education and vocational training is of high quality and reflects the need of the industry. And this is why we need public-private partnership in order to understand the labor requirements of the sector. Education and training can take also advantage of information and communication technologies to expand remote access, etc., to education. And finally, there is a need to provide support to fossil fuel workers that seek to take on new roles in renewable, even though many of the skills are transferable. Next slide, please. In this pursuit for a fair and inclusive transition, we have also worked on the role of women. And women, of course, are underrepresented in the sector's workforce. We have done a global survey that shows that women are 32% of renewable energy employment. This is much better than fossil fuels, where it's 22%, but still below the average for the economy. And since the energy transition is central to resolving the climate change, we need to recognize that many of the sustainable development goals reinforce each other. So establishing gender as a pillar of energy strategies at the national and global levels will produce a more inclusive transition and accelerate the attainment, the achievement of multiple sustainable development goals. Next slide, please. So what we try to promote is to link the short-term recovery post-COVID to the medium and long-term strategies to achieve SDGs and the Paris Agreement. And a number of objectives are really central. One is ambition, raising national climate targets and enhance NDCs. In terms of public intervention, we need to formulate a strategy to guide the move away from fossil fuels and make, for example, any pandemic bailouts conditional on strong climate action. In terms of investment, it is really important to safeguard existing renewable energy projects and ensure a stable policy framework for the energy transition. In terms of employment, we need to, as I just mentioned, support the workforce in energy transition related fields, develop education and training measures to minimize the skill gaps. In terms of localization, it's important, as I just mentioned in one of the slides, to diversify supply chain and strengthen local capabilities. There is really a lot of potential jobs with the different kinds of skills that can be used. And finally, for access, it's very important to support distributed renewable energy solution, to strengthen health, sanitation, and other critical infrastructure. Next slide, please. So we need a comprehensive approach. And that includes, of course, renewable energy deployment policies like targets, mandates, feed-in tariffs, auctions, etc. We also need measures that facilitate the integration of renewable energy into power grid and end-use sectors where renewables have not done as well as in power. But beyond this, we need a set of enabling policies to create this socio-economic underpinnings of the transition. And that includes, again, industrial policy to leverage and enhance domestic capacity and create a viable domestic supply chain, such as an economic incubator, industry clusters, incentives, etc. Education and skills policies are very important, as I mentioned a few times, to coordinate efforts between the industry and the educational sector. Labor market policies in order to really avoid the mismatch between skills demand and supply and provide adequate employment services, facilitate labor mobility, etc. And finally, financial and fiscal policies to mobilize revenues to promote the energy transitions, and secondly, to have public investment strategies. Above all, this different type of policies need to complement and reinforce each other to ensure a successful energy transition. So my last words is that there is a huge potential in benefiting from an energy transition if policies are designed in such a way as to complement and reinforce each other in order to benefit from the energy transition from an environmental, social, and economic point of view. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rabia Faruqi. We have never been disappointed whenever we look for information of renewable energy. We always turn to IRENA. And this time as well, Dr. Rabia Faruqi gave us very detailed information about transforming the energy scenario into renewable energy. It's good to know that the annual energy related CO2 gonna reduce by 70% by 2050. And in detail, CO2 will reduce from 1.4 gigaton per year in 2017 to 0.8 gigaton per year in 2050. And further, renewable energy in power generation will increase from 20% in 2017 to 85% in 2050. And it's also good to know that the TES, or transforming energy scenarios, will boost GDP in 2050 by 2.5%, especially in Southeast Asia. The GDP gonna increase by 2.9% above the business as usual. And it's also good to know that there will be job creation by 42 million jobs in 2050. Only for Southeast Asia, there are going to be 11 million jobs by 2050. And 32% of those jobs going to be for women. That's good news. And she also give us the last word that be prepared for skill workshop in order to handle with the upcoming renewable energy. Thank you very much, Dr. Rabir. And our next speaker would be Dr. Yosapong Laonuan. Dr. Yosapong Laonuan received his PhD in mechanical engineering from Imperial College of Science, Technology and Medicine, University of London. And now it is known as Imperial College, London, UK. And his research interests in technical research, he interested in electric and hybrid vehicle, battery fire and explosion, internal combustion engines, renewable fuels, spray and atomizations, optical diagnostic techniques such as high-speed imaging, particle image, velocimetry, and laser-induced fluorescence. In policy research, he also interested in sustainability, automotive industry policy, transportation energy policy, policy on energy efficiency, and renewable vehicles, as well as electric vehicles. He used to position as the formal president of the, I'm sorry, I don't get the full name. Oh, the automotive engineering divisions. And now he's is the assistant to the president of sustainability at King Mongkut University of Technology, Thonburi. And he also had the research center, Mobility and Vehicle Technology Research Center, Institute of Scientific and Technological Research and Service, King Mongkut University of Technology, Thonburi. And for today, he's gonna give us or present us on the topic of how electric vehicles can help shape future ASEAN smart cities. Dr. Yosapong, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Achikom, for a long introduction. Today, I would like to give the presentations about how the electric vehicle can help shape the future ASEAN smart city. Not showing yet, but it's okay. I can still. Right, while we are waiting for the presentation, today actually I have been asked to give the to represent the Asian Federation of Electric Vehicles Associations. We at the moment during last 4 years I was running the Electric Vehicle Association of Thailand, and we have been many opportunity to meet several ASEAN EV association. For example, the EV association in Singapore, in Malaysia, and in Philippines. And I think since 2017, that's the first time we meet together in Manila. We have been discussion that maybe the EV association in ASEAN could start to thinking and working together. And from 2017 in Manila, we start to think that probably would be a good idea to forming some of the body together. And we come up with the names of the ASEAN's. At first, we come with the name with the Asian Federation of EV Association. Now we are in the process of legislation this federation in Philippines. The chairman will be the president of Electric Vehicle Association of Philippines, and now I will be the Secretary General for this new federation. Unfortunately, the presentation is still not showing here. I'll still keep talking anyway. So the idea of trying to have this platform, to have the EV association in ASEAN is to working together. We would like to see the harmonized, showing already, thank you. Okay, so the idea of the association is try to encourage an exchange of information within ASEAN to promote the transfer of technologies. And I think we would like to support the regulatory alignment in the EV standard in ASEAN. So with these four founder of the EV association, we forming at the moment, the Asian Federation of EV Association we call AFIVA. So it's okay. So to work in the ASEAN, we try to look the whole picture of the ASEAN. I think we, as many people know, we have some challenges in the ASEAN. If you are in Thailand, you know that the PM 2.5 is one of the challenges, and of course smoke problems. When we look at this data in 2018, you can see that the PM 2.5, the average exceeds the amounts that recommended by the WHO, right? Many sources of PMs come from, obviously from the transport sector, from the agriculture. But in the big city, like Bangkok or many big city, mostly the source of PM 2.5 is coming from the transport congestion. So I think that's one of the challenges in many governments. You can see that and also in terms of the energy issue. So if you look at the categories of if you look at the segment of the energy consumption in ASEAN, number one and number two. Number one is either transport or in the manufacturing or on the building sector. So this will be one of the challenges to manage the energy use in the transport sector. And if we look at the prediction by the DVNGL, they look at toward 2050s. For the transport sector, you can see that there's some the energy source that coming from the electricity, and non-electricity is mean the fossil fuels. I think it's become challenging because that means if you have the vehicle running in the city, obviously the emission problem will be one of the concern, especially like when we have very bad traffics. Like at the moment, you can see that during last few months, when we have the COVID and we've been locked down. The traffic on the roads is very clear. And when we look at the statistic data in Bangkok, the PM 2.5 average is reducing. But you know, when we seem to be coming back, but not yet fully recovery. But you can see the traffic's still killing us, especially when in Bangkok, when we have the raining days, right? So these challenges to for the big city, and I think the transport sector will be, the energy in transport sector will be growing in the next future when the things is coming back to normal. I think the idea that the Dr. Tawarat mentioned on the smart city in Thailand, I think that one of the key is about sustainable mobilities. That become important laws to on the smart city. We're not, when I'm talking about the EV, it's not just that EV will solve the issue of the challenges that I'm talking about previously, but electric vehicle will be one of the solutions that helping the reducing the emission and to improve the city. And of course, when we're talking about electric vehicle, people, we need to think about how we refuel the energy into vehicle. And then it's come up with the idea of using the charging infrastructure. We need to have the charging infrastructure. Of course, the electric vehicle can be using electric at home. You can charge at homes, but some people, they might not have the parking space at home. So the public charging is also one of important things. So I think the city need to plan ahead about how to install this charging infrastructure. And with the new trend of mobilities of vehicles, in my opinion, the electric vehicle will become like a fundamental of a vehicle in the future. And maybe you heard of like autonomous vehicles, which is become another next generation mobilities. And vehicle will be connected together. So I think they have a word that called the vehicle to X, vehicle to everything. That means vehicle will be commute to another vehicle. Vehicle will communicate with pedestrian. Even the vehicle will be connected to the energies. So this will be changing the way of life in the future. And one of the important technology on electric vehicle is about V2X or vehicle to V2Gs. People thinking that the electric vehicle is only consume the energies, but in fact, it's the energy storage. It actually is a movable energy storage itself, right? So that means people say at some point that when we have a lot of electric vehicle, there will be consumed a lot of electricity. But you know, in the fact that because it's a movable energy storage, so you can plan to use electricity wisely by electric vehicle. So V2G technologies will be helping to balance the energy demands. I think people, when they talk about electric, when you're talking about using a lot of solar, it seems that in the daytime, the grid will have less demand because of people can produce their own electricity. Then the peak will become in the evening, right? And people imagine that when you use electric vehicles, they will be charging more at nighttime and will even increase the peaks. But the fact that you can still plan for electric vehicle to be charging at the daytime to balance this the energy balance of the electric balance unbalance. So now I think the many European countries in the US, they already start to do demonstration of vehicle to grid technologies. I think that's one of the advantage of using electric vehicle, and they will become to important role into the smart city. If we look at this, I think in ASEAN they have developed the called ASEAN Smart City Framework. I think three strategic outcome that is try to do this, the ASEAN smart city to have the high quality of life. It had to be sustainable environments, have to be competitive economies. So I think Dr. Thawat mentioned about the smart city in Thailand. So you can see that not only Thailand, but many, the 10 countries in ASEAN have been agreed, try to develop their own city to be smart city. And as you can see, they are agreed to in 6 focus areas. As you can see that the civils and socials, quality environments, health and well-being, build infrastructure, safety, security, industry, and innovation together. So the as the electric vehicle is new trends, it will be coming parallel along with this smart city in ASEAN, definitely. Let's look at the what's happening on the EVs in the globals. You can see that this is the accumulate of the electric vehicles. I think in 2019, we have now about 7 million electric vehicles. That means the plug-in hybrid and the battery EVs. We have, and as you can see that the country like China is one of them, that's one of who have a lot of the electric vehicles. And secondly would be in Europeans and the US and in this one. So the growing of the trend of electric vehicles driving by, I think one is technologies. You know, like company like Tesla to pushing the technologies. And also countries like China have been trying to push these EV technologies. In my opinion, China is very close to our ASEAN. They will have some influence and impact to the automotive industry in this ASEAN, in these regions. Bloomberg have been predicted, this is predicted the share of the plug-in hybrid and battery EVs. As you can see that we are in 2020. If you add the global scale, the market share is still very small. I think less than 2%. And it will be increasing to about 5 to 10% in 2025. But you can see that when it's in 2030s, the share will be increasing to 25% and will be increasing to 50% by 2040. But my own opinion is that we are predicting based on the past and current situation. In my opinion, this market trend probably will be more higher market share in the future. So we need to look at this trend closely, right? You might not, I think if you look at back 10 years ago about your smartphone, I think 10 years ago, you might not never thought about the smartphone at all, right? But today, I think everyone, almost everyone, I would say 90% of people using smartphone. So it's the same with this kind of technologies, which is by technology driven. So we need, I think, this trend, we have to look closely about the trends of this electric vehicle. So that's why in IEA have predicted 2 scenarios in 2030s, which is, if you see in 2030, there are 2 scenarios. One is state policy, one is sustainable development scenario, right? So the EV stock by the state policy scenario is about 150 million vehicle EVs. But if you look at the sustainable development scenario, it could up to 250. The difference of this scenario is quite different, right? So that's why I think, in my opinion, nobody knows the answer in next 10 years. So all the prediction that I present today, it could be wrong. It could be higher than what we see today. And if you look at many previous history of many innovation technology, I think people always have the wrong prediction. It's underestimate of this new technology, right? Um, so I think this is a good example that this is, we might not be 100% be able to predict what's happening, but we know that it's definitely coming and we have to prepare to work on this. So when we look in the EV deployment target in Asia, there are a lot of countries, China, Indonesia, China is one of the leaders, or Japan's they have some target, right? If we look at the ASEAN's, when we combine Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, we come up with a number of about 1.3 million in 2035. This is according to the government's announcements policy. I will come up to focusing on the ASEAN's more later on. So when we look at this EV standard in Southeast Asia, on the left, you see that this is the all automotive production in 5 countries in ASEAN, right? The blue is show the internal combustion engine. So but the yellow one is the battery EV. So you rarely see any red, any yellow from that is producing the BEV. In Thailand, we produce about 2 million vehicles a year. You can see that. For the Indonesian, it's about 1.2 millions. Malaysians about almost 500,000, and then Vietnam is about 170,000 vehicles, and Philippines are 100,000. So this is a potential of the market. At the moment, I would say 99% of vehicle is internal combustion engines, right? And if you look on the right, you can see that this is the number of the battery EV in 4 countries, right? So only about 5,000 in Philippines. More than 90% is two-wheel or three-wheeler. Mostly in Philippines, three-wheelers. In Thailand, around 3,000 vehicles, and a lot is four-wheeler now. And then the Malaysian ones, less than 2,000. But when you see this one and look at the left, you might see at the moment, majority is internal combustion engines, right? But I think if you look at this closely, it means that is a market opportunity, right? In Thailand, we produce 2 million, but we use about, the vehicle sale in Thailand is about 1 million. So we export most of the half of we are producing. But in Indonesia, Malaysia, or Vietnam, they are producing to use in their country. And if you look at the EV policy in these 4 countries, so you can see that Philippines now, they try to working on the EV standard. They adopt 63 standard now at the moment, try to make this standard. In Singapore, they already announced to phase out 40. So they are the first country in ASEAN who announced this. Many countries in the world already announced it, right? Many countries announced that they will phase out internal combustion engine by Norway 2025, Germany 2030s, right? UK 2040, and then discussing to be 2035, something like that, right? So Singapore is the first country to announce in 2040s. Malaysians also have some target for electric vehicles. For Thailand, about 4 years ago, the Ministry of Energy announced that they will try to promote the use of electric vehicles. That's why we have the projects to install a lot of EV charging stations in Thailand. Now we have about 500 charging location points. And at that time, it's predicted that we probably use electric vehicles to reduce amount of CO2, the energies. And we should have the electric vehicles 1.2 million in 2036. And recently, in Thailand, we have the new committees called the National EV Policy Committees, that they will plan to have, they announced that they would like to do 30, they call 30 at 30s. It means they would like to have XEV of 30% market share in 2030s. And in detail, it will be 15% will be battery electric vehicles, which is 15% of 2.5 million vehicles that we are predicting to produce in 2030s. Right? So you can see in ASEAN, we are moving toward electric vehicles. I would like to end my, my presentation to this. So as you can see, the ASEAN Smart City Network was established and aimed to improve the quality of life, build competitiveness, and to promote the sustainable environments in ASEAN. The EV trend is around the world. You can observe it. And the public charging station is getting, I would say, a new normal. I think probably in a few years, you will feel normal with with the charging station. In Southeast Asia, we look at the vehicle will be on, EV will be on the road about 1.3 million if plans in 2035 is planned can be achieved, right? And V2G technologies could be one of the new technologies that to promote of the use of EV and to helping stability of the electricity production and increase the grid efficiency. I think that's it for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yosapong. I would like to correct my announcement. Actually, right now, Dr. Yosapong is honorary chairman of the Electric Vehicle Association of Thailand. And he also involved with the ASEAN Federation of Electric Vehicle Association. And it's good to know that the not only EV can reduce PM 2.5, the COVID-19 also can reduce PM 2.5. And that is true, I agree with that. But after COVID-19, I think we need to turn back to the EV again. And it's good to know that Dr. Yosapong told us about charging infrastructure gonna be an essential part in most of the countries. And I used to hear about V2G vehicle to grid. I used to hear about V2B vehicle to building. But this is my first time that I heard about V2X, vehicle to everything. That is a very good word. And we can see that whatever you do in the future, you need a car. And Dr. Yosapong mentioned about ASEAN Smart City Framework. And he said, we're gonna have, right now, we already have 7 million electric vehicles as of 2019 around the world. And we're gonna see that EV gonna take 50% share of all the cars in 2040. And he also pointed out it may come sooner than 2040. And also, Dr. Yosapong mentioned about EV policy and regulatory framework. And he pointed out that there's only Singapore that really set up a target of 100% of EV by the year 2040. And he also anticipated more from other countries in Southeast Asia. And at the end, he pointed out that we're gonna see EV by 1.3 million on the street by 2035 in Southeast Asia. And these are the really interesting figures. Thank you again, Dr. Yosapong. Our next speaker would be Mr. Sathit Krongsuth, Director, Research and Innovation Division of ECAT. Mr. Sathit Krongsuth has more than 20 years of professional experience in power system planning, which consists of system analysis, design, and feasibility study of power system development project. He experts in electric power transmission and distribution industry and has an opportunity to plan organizations, strategy, and establish the corporate plan. Now, he is responsible for research and innovation administration, dealing with the change of electric utilities industry, policy, and technology disruption. Lead to innovation is the key driven organization as innovate power solution for a better life is a new mission for him. Again, Mr. Sathit Krongsuth, Director Research and Innovation Division from ECAT, gonna present the role of ECAT in building Thailand's smart energy future. Please.
สวัสดีครับ My presentation is about the EGAC's role in building the future of Thai electricity. EGAC is responsible for electric power generation and transmission for the whole country. And we also own and operate a high voltage transmission network which cover on parts of the country. So EGAC has been trying to enhance the energy infrastructure to be able to support smart city platform in each region of Thailand. Moreover, EGAC never stopped researching, inventing, and innovating in order to correspond to the change of the world's technology. For example, renewable, battery and EV, which are rapidly changing electric technology, which will directly affect to the customer and population. Therefore, EGAC has to prepare for this challenge. EGAC's vision is innovate power solutions for a better life, which is considered a promise in communicating to the Thai people about the role of EGAC as a leader in electric power innovation, which will enhance the quality of life of the Thai people in the future. We look around of daily life from sleep to wake up to work. So we will find that the device allow us are all related to electricity. From the picture, the bus are also transformed to electric buses. Office building become a clean energy building with solar rooftop. And some areas have been developed into microgrids. And customer become to prosumer. So for the Thailand energy scenario, the energy future image and the major challenge that EGAC has worked with partners inside and outside the country. To support renewable energy in Thailand, EGAC continue to focus on wind power and solar energy because they are the good potential and quite highly available in our country, especially the sunlight. But the renewable energy is not stable. So main objective of our renewable energy field is to discover and develop renewable energy to provide the stability and reliability of power generation through solution. EGAC continue to improve power quality and serve to stabilize the stability of the domestic power system while renewable energy is entering the main electrical system supervised by the National Energy Control Center, or we call NCC. We have established EGAC RE forecast center for solar and wind power forecast with energy demand data and weather forecast data via artificial neural network. EGAC conducts the study and have at least 2 prototype areas. One is the Sinakharin Dam, the largest floating solar area in the country. So we use the hydro floating solar hybrid with the hydro power plant. And another one is at the learning center Khao Yai Thiang in Nakhon Ratchasima province. It's a learning area for wind energy technology and hydrogen energy storage system. For the EV project, EGAC has participated in 4 roles. One is EV. EGAC has studied EV car, buses, motorcycle, and boat, as well as the electrical modification kits, which have been developed together with EGAC partner to study and develop in order to support domestic industry. The second one is electric charging station. EGAC has established charging head standard and charging system, including electric vehicle standard number 5, and we know in the Thai เบอร์ 5 นะครับ And this standard in conjunction with TISI, NSTDA, and DEDE already listed in the TSI standards. EGAC continue to develop ultra-fast charging Thai electric charging technology to support electric charging with short time and convenient and safely. For the management system, EGAC developed electric charging management system through the electric networks across the country in conjunction with various universities. The last one is the energy exchange system. EGAC has collaborated with Nissan to test a prototype of an electric power exchange system between EV and the main electrical system. and continue to pay attention to EV battery to the further of quality development. For the energy storage technology, EGAC has prepared to support the destruction of various electronic waste, such as solar panels and battery. The main objective is to find destructive patterns for the safest and most environmentally friendly recycle of electronic waste. Recently, using and installing renewable energy technology and battery are global trends, so resulting in a large amount of electronic waste. Not only waste disposal, EGAC must find a way to recycle the device for the best benefit. Maybe reusing some of the quality parts. Then in the growth direction of electric vehicles, clearly state that battery waste continue to increase. For that reason, EGAC has cooperated with the Department of Industry by starting a project of dispose and recycle waste, battery and solar panels of factory. This could be a good opportunity to create jobs for the Thai worker in the country. Finally, for the slide before, we have to develop the platform for the trade, the energy. We call National Energy Trading Platform. It has partnered with electric authority organizations, EGAC, MEA, and PEA. With this concept of being a center of energy trading and information exchange digital system of the country, which connect the network via the EGAC system, MEA system, and PEA system. It is important to set up financial infrastructure, smart equipment, and digital platform system that support on user in Thailand. So the benefit of this platform may in such as for the Thai people in the country, this platform can support use of the clean energy, enhance Thai industry competition, and support Thailand 4.0 policy. And for the role of EGAC, be able to manage energy balance more efficiently, support effective electric power control, and maximize the capability of the electrical system. So to support this picture, EGAC try to develop the renewable energy forecast to maintain the system, the electric system strengthen, and try to develop the solar or wind power hybrid with the hydro power plant or the plant of EGAC own. And we try to develop the energy trading platform to support this picture with the EV bus, the micro system, and renewable. And the last one is ECAC want to be the one of the player who provide charging station, because our system is the main electric system, so we can provide the fast charging station to the customer who use the EV car. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kun Sathit. Kun Sathit gave us a lot of information about ECAT. He mentioned that ECAT has so many projects for stability of power system, for transmission system, smart grid system, renewable energy, and also the electric vehicle and energy storage. For EV itself, ECAT also involved in many projects with the vehicle itself, charging station, network operation, and V2G, also battery. Kun Sathit mentioned about ECAT minibus, and upcoming gonna be the number 5 electric motorbikes, which is motorbike number 5, Berha. And it's interesting to know that ECAT also taking care or looking at the battery and PV panel waste disposal. And this is going to be one of the major problems in the future. And even more interesting, Kun Sathit mentioned about NETP, which stands for National Energy Trading Platform. And that involved with smart contract, smart meters, smart wallets, and the transmission system in the future. Looks like ECAT have been preparing for the upcoming technology about energy. And so we can be released that somebody is looking at the future for us. Thank you again, Kun Sathit. Thank you very much. And that concludes our session for today. And I hope everybody had benefit from this session. And at the end, I would ask for all of you to give a big hand to all of our speakers. Thank you very much.